Would you have preferred if you didn't know that Wolverine is in this movie and they had gone with a different title, Deadpool and a Friend or something? Would you have preferred that,
I
or you think,
I I would have preferred to not know anything. For me,
hmm,
some people
yes,
don't like surprises here, but if somebody just said Deadpool 3 is coming out and that's all I knew,
yes,
it would have been I think my joy would have gone even higher because
yes,
there was an
just
expectation. I knew that Wolverine was going to be in this, you
yeah.
know. I knew it.
And just imagine, you're in the theater and suddenly you have the Wolverine walking in inside the movie. You will be like, oh my God, this is,
I'd be
you
like,
know,
did they just do? Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't know that Blade was going to be it, and Gambit,
yes,
and all
yes,
these
yes.
other things
So the
because I didn't watch any of the
surprises were
previews.
there. Yeah,
So the
yeah,
surprises were wonderful. They were just,
exactly.
I mean, it took me from here to like here, on the
Yes,
enjoyment scale because it was such a pleasant surprise, you know, of like,
exactly.
oh my God. I mean, I'm like, I could not stay in my seat. I'm doing this, like I'm moving around because I'm just so excited. Yeah,
Right.
and that's what it comes down to. Is that I did I forgot how old I am. I was, 10 years old, enjoying everything. Yeah, obviously on the more adult parts, I was 18 and 19 and 20. But even at that, it hit every single point of my being here. I was able to install, understand the adult parts. I was able to install, to relive, what made me the kid parts,
Right.
it just, it hits on so many different levels. It's like an onion. There were so many
Right.
different layers to this movie here. And so,
Exactly.
I mean, I can't get over, and this is why I will watch this forever. It will never get boring. It'll never get tired because it appeals to so many different levels,
Exactly.
and that's
Yeah.
the making of a good movie. That's why one of the things that, like I told you, I watched planes and automobiles 50 times. No doubt. No,
Right.
I literally
Yeah.
50 times. I can quote you all of it.
Mm.
I talk. I speak every single part. You know, in the movie here, I can do every single part
Really?
and
Oh,
take you through.
we
Yeah.
should do a podcast on that then next time.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I can go, but because it hits on so many different layers, you get your comedy, you get your tragedy, you get your
Mm.
drama, you get your conflict, you
Mm.
get all these different things here that makes a movie not just a movie, but a complex story. And so,
Mm.
and I love, we call it the M. Night Shyamalan, a
Yeah,
twist.
yeah.
He's coined that. It's a twist.
Right, right.
One of those things is like the I didn't expect that. Once again, Johnny Storm. Didn't expect that. The
Yes.
fact that they killed off Johnny Storm, didn't expect it. But it
Mhm.
was just like, what? you know,
Right.
it's that type of thing. That you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like so engaged. I didn't even want to blink. I was fear I was
Oh,
gonna miss something. Yeah. So,
awesome.
but it was
That's,
just ah so cool.
I'm glad that, it got you so excited. And, for me, yes, as I told you, my experience with this movie was, uh, I was super excited with all the cameos that I saw.
Mhm,
But, my connection to the movie is not as deep as yours, but I still enjoyed it. I still
mhm,
enjoyed almost all the cameos. And I tried to do a little bit of research before watching the movie so that the cameo that I'm going to see, the characters that I'm going to see, I know them before
mhm,
I've watched the movie. Because since I've not read so many comic books, some of those characters I might have not seen in previous
mhm,
movies. Like I wasn't familiar with Blade until I watched Deadpool and Wolverine because I'd never seen Blade movies. So for
mhm.
me, Blade as a character was a new character. But when I watched it the next time and I studied a little bit about him, it was wow. I could understand what people must be going through when they must have seen these characters come on the screen. Right.
Did
Well,
you know?
I had
Did you know that?
yeah.
Did you know that Ryan Reynolds was in Blade 3?
No, but then I read it, and apparently they had some problem also. Is it the characters or is it in real life they had some problems with each other? And
I don't
he,
know about the real life, but the characters had issues with each other,
okay,
in there. But the fact is that for people that didn't see Blade here, now you're peaked. I want to go see
Yes.
those movies now. And so
Exactly.
that now,
Exactly.
and now that has brought you into that timeline, which now has, and one of the things that I've always been a fan of uh, was the character is not a Marvel character, but Spawn. I don't know if you ever heard of Spawn.
No,
It's a
no.
very dark comic here about a
Okay.
guy who does very very bad things, goes to hell, and
Okay.
now he has been reincarnated here and has to redeem himself and do different
Oh,
things.
oh,
But the devil wants him to be a minion
okay.
for him on Earth, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to try and be better. So
Okay.
there's a whole thing. I've always been so anyway. They did a movie Spawn there,
Okay.
and I loved it. It was amazing. It was
Oh,
crazy. It was awesome. Here now, and then they make a number two, and um, I hated it. It was like it's like they put their best foot forward, and then they just kind of slap something together. It was just like, you know.
um,
But anyway, uh, but the story was okay, but it didn't align with me. And I'm saying other people liked it and everything else. But
okay.
so this goes back to that sequels and stuff like this. And I think
Yeah.
that the Deadpool series
Mhm.
acknowledges that we're going to work hard every single movie here to bring you the
Wow.
best here. We're not going to just rest
Exactly.
on our laurels and rest on on the different things here. We're actually going to do it. So number two was great. Number three
Yeah.
was even better. I mean, they're just
Yes.
every single time. But they're not forgetting, and they didn't forget about the people in the previous. That was one of the
Right.
things I like, is that it really built. And so if you could take, kind of like what Back to the Future does, and,
Yeah.
and they build off of it and make it more robust, and not
Yeah.
just say, here's one, here's one, here's one, compartmentalize it, and be
Hmm.
able to say, oh yeah, this is part of a bigger world here. We're all in this
Right.
together, and everything else. It's just really amazing.
Exactly. Okay, now my question to you would be, you had so many Wolverines in the movie. Who is your favorite Wolverine and why?
So I identify most with the cavalry because the
Yes.
comic books that I read, he had a motorcycle. He was a loner for the most part. Yes, he had interactions with uh, X-Men. I enjoyed that. I'm a big fan of the old X-Men cartoon show.
Mhm.
I was also the amber or the brown and yellow Wolverine was very very good. I enjoyed that,
Okay.
but and that's part of some of that. But the cavalry was always the guy. He was the guy in the motorcycle. He was tough. He was a loner. He had the cigar. He just and he was the guy who just didn't give a crap about anything. You know,
Okay.
um, he does what he does. He's more of an anti-hero. He more aligned with Deadpool here. Is
Okay.
that he does what's right, but he does what's for him, and
Mm,
he doesn't give a crap. So if the cavalry were to be in an alley, and you're walking past here and everything like this, he'd give you crap, if you try to
okay.
do anything to him. But at the same token, if somebody tried to hurt you or something like that, he'd be like, I don't like you. I'm gonna beat your butt because you don't do that to people, So he's like,
Yeah.
that anti-hero, and
Okay.
so that's what I really identify.
So I have a question regarding this because I don't understand it completely. So
Mhm.
when they come with this comic book, so they have different Wolverines in different comic book. Are they like talking about a multiverse? And when they come with these different versions of Wolverine in their comic book?
So they talk about a multiverse without talking about a multiverse. What
Okay.
they need to so depending on the
Hmm.
writers will write a story, and so these
Okay.
stories will be able to contribute and contribute, contribute until what happened was is that they just have no more ideas. And so what they
Okay.
do is that they have to shelf these ideas here because they've taken this character here and built this whole world around it here,
Hmm.
and it could be because what they haven't been exposed to, what they have, they just can't. They get kind of a writer's block, I assume would be
Yeah.
something. And so there's this like, so I love the character here, but now that they give you that what if? Well, what if?
Oh,
Okay, and so that spawns a different flavor of comics, different origin story, different things. In Wolverine here, not all Wolverines, have regenerative abilities. You know,
Oh,
not
okay.
all Wolverines. Some Wolverines have a definite birth date. Others they don't know how old he is. Some people think he's been
Okay.
around for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
I mean, so because some of the things like in Deadpool here, they talked about Nice Pool. Oh, Nice Pool doesn't have
Yes.
regenerative abilities? What? Stuff like that. So there's lots of different origin stories, and so they want to
Uh,
take a character here, and they say, okay, I don't want to limit it to just this one thing, but I
yeah.
start asking myself, well, what if Wolverine was like this, or what if
Yeah.
Wolverine was like this? And so that spawns the different flavors here,
Okay.
and then from that, it takes it's like a single cell. You know, you have a single
Got it.
cell, and then the cell divides, and then the cell divides, and so
Yeah.
we start building these traits.
Wow.
And then we build the traits end up building, what we contribute to the person or the character as a whole. And then those people, well, now we have to build experiences here. Okay, how,
Right.
because these traits help influence how we feel, how the character feels about certain things, and then those feelings turns into decisions here. And so we
Right.
start at a certain point in the timeline here, and we start moving forward here. But then we start asking ourselves, what's going on here? What made him be like that? And that
Right.
starts spawning the origin story here. Now we start going backwards and then and
Right.
moving forward here. So, I mean, one of the greatest origin stories here, was Magneto's. Magneto's got a
Oh,
whole origin story that he lived through the Holocaust, that he was separated from his parents. He was
yeah. Yeah.
branded here because he's Jewish,
Right.
and
Right.
everything else. And so I mean, it's a very dark origin story here, but it
Exactly.
crafted him into being the person he is, and all the different nuances that led up to this is why he distrusts, Homo sapiens,
Yeah.
and so forth. So there's a
Right.
real reason. It's not just because, oh, I'm crazy and I want to hurt people. He's
Right.
been hurt a lot, you know,
Right. Right.
um, and so forth. There is a new series called X-Men '97. It's a cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and so they continue from where the old X-Men cartoon series left off here. So that's
Oh,
why they call it
okay.
X-Men '97, because that's where it was. And so, but
Right.
then they start diving deeper into things here, you know,
Okay.
uh, and so they bring different things and different things. But so getting back to the original of Wolverine here is that Wolverine's a great concept here, but it
Okay.
can fulfill so many different stories here if we just tweak them, by asking what if, you know.
Right.
But
Right.
there's a whole Wolverine here where he never underwent the adamantium uh,
Oh.
metal bonding to him, and he's got bone claws.
Oh.
There's
Okay.
another thing where he did go through the adamantium thing, but Magneto has stripped all of his adamantium away and pulled it all out of his body. Now he's got to live his life, this way, without the adamantium. And how does he live it? He's got these bone claws here. I don't know, in sometimes, in some areas here, he's got slits for his claws. You know,
Wow.
Others he doesn't, and so every time he shoots his claws out, it hurts him. you know it
Oh,
causes great pain, and then it heals up, and then it hurts them, and everything else. And so with regenerative abilities here, it doesn't harden the skin because the skin goes back to a period of before it inflicted damage,
mm,
and so
okay.
it's always uh, hurting him.
Right. Right.
And so what would happen is that he may end up putting like uh prosthesis holes in here, so it doesn't hurt him anymore, and so he's able to do that. So
Okay.
there's different things, but there's all sorts of little things here. If I had Wolverine claws and it hurt me, like excruciating, like somebody stabbing me every single time, I wouldn't want to do that unless I absolutely needed to. you know
Exactly.
so
Right.
it's that
That's
it's that
awesome.
type of thing there. And
Yes.
then now you bundle in technology here. And so now that we bundle in technology, now we have the ability to now go forward and backwards in time. We saw Endgame here. That
Yeah.
played with the whole space time continuum here. And that and so then you see Steve Rogers at the end. He's all old here, but then there's things that now question, was that really even him? What, that could have been, one of the shape changers, or that could have been,
Oh,
you know, uh, yeah. I mean,
okay.
there's a whole, because we ask what if, and it's those
Yes.
questions that spawn these great ideas, which spawns off alternate timelines and multiverses and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
back then they were
That's
called alternate timelines. Now it's called
okay.
multiverses. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
So yeah, that's great. And since we have spoken a lot, and we would be coming back again for another podcast, maybe as a part two. But before
Mhm.
that, I just wanted to end this podcast with one what if question. What if
Yeah.
you were given an option to team up Deadpool and Wolverine with a DC character or DC characters in one movie? One movie, Deadpool Wolverine with one or two DC characters. Who would they be, and how would you like to
Yeah.
see them?
Well, it would have to be somebody who is on the same level.
Okay.
So I would probably say that we wouldn't do anything from outer space, because they're
Okay.
not really outer space characters.
Right.
Um, we could do things with a timeline. We can
Mhm.
do obviously a multiverse could reach over into the DC universe. We could do
Yes.
it that way here. I think that a Batman would be excellent.
Okay.
I think that um, you know, let's see here. Batman is the first thing that comes to mind because Batman has such weaponry and gear that he can
Okay.
do different things there. Um, if I had to go a little bit deeper,
Mhm.
um, I would probably say, hmm, God, so many. I like the Flash. I've always been a Flash fan. The
Oh,
Flash would have
nice.
been really, really good because he's got regenerative abilities here, so it
Yeah.
pairs with them a lot there.
Right.
Also, you could explore space-time continuum because of the Speed Force.
Right.
So I'd probably say either Batman or the Flash.
Oh,
Those would be
nice.
good. Those would be good complementary characters because
Right.
then they bring enough storyline and then bring um, enough things that they can explore. They can
Wow.
say,
Yeah.
there's enough ideas. So they could do a timeline thing with the Flash. They can bring up some really good villains on both sides of the fence that they both have to address there.
Right.
They have their limitations, but not so much of a limitation that they can't overcome it because they've
Okay.
overcome a lot, many odds there.
Right.
They're all fragmented in their belief because they've all had parents killed, of some
Mhm.
sort. They all dealing with tragedy here. So yeah, those would
Right.
be my two that I would say that you could pair up with very, very well and
Wow.
come up with very good storylines.
Great. So, with that, we will end our podcast with the hope that the universe is listening to us and we get such a movie.